Hey friend, welcome back to Seed and Sparrow Homestead. I am Kelsey and today we are working on freezer meals. We're gonna stock the freezer specifically with meals for dinner. I'm gonna make a dinner time easy for myself now that it is garden season. I have been hard at work in the garden now for the last 2 weeks. And nearly every time I come in from a long day working out there, I think to myself, man, it'd be really nice if I had some meals ready to go in the freezer. So we're gonna solve that problem today. We're gonna make 8 different freezer meals using some with chicken, some with pork, and some with a combo of venison and beef. I'm gonna double them, so that gives me 16 meals to use over the coming weeks and months. I've said before, I usually only cook dinner 3 times a week. We eat some leftovers and snack plates and other things. But if I do all this today, cooking one time, I'll be able to actually feed us dinner for an entire month if I would choose to. But I'll probably spread these out over a longer period of time. So we're gonna get to work on some with the chicken right now. I prepped a whole chicken yesterday. It was about an 8-pound bird, so I thought that was going to be enough, but I wasn't considering the whole doubling all the recipes thing. So I just pulled out some chicken legs and we're gonna cook them up in the Instant Pot real quick. That should only be about 25 minutes. So we'll get to work with what I already have prepped. We're gonna do buffalo mac and cheese. We're gonna do a white chicken enchilada, and we're doing some stuffed shells with chicken, spinach, and ricotta. So I've got some water boiling for the shells. We're gonna get them cooking. And I think first we're gonna start on some buffalo mac and cheese. So let me get all my ingredients out and we're gonna get to work. I don't know what I'm thinking. I have to boil noodles for the mac and cheese too. So my water's boiling, so we're just gonna get some elbow macaroni into that pot. Now with any recipe I am going to be putting in the freezer that uses noodles, I'm gonna make sure to only boil them to just al dente, maybe even a hair under that, just to ensure that they're not going mushy and soggy on me after they have thawed. So we're gonna set the timer for 7 minutes. Macaroni is drained. I rinsed it really well with cold water just to make sure it didn't continue to cook. More water is boiling for the shells and our chicken legs are in the Instant Pot. So we need to get to work on our cheese sauce. So some butter is going into this pan here, and we're gonna make our thickener, our roux first, and then we're gonna add in our cheese and milk and some seasoning. So like I always say, if you are interested in any of the recipes in my videos, you can find all of the recipes or links down in the description. So I am doubling all my recipes, but I will share what the amounts are for one recipe. So you need a 1/4 cup of butter. This is melted here, and you would want 2 tablespoons of flour. So I've got 4 going in here, and we're gonna stir this together. So well combined and just allow it to cook for about a minute. Now I'm gonna add in my milk. You would need 2½ cups of milk. This is about 30 ounces of cheese. For one batch, you would just use 15. Or however much your heart desires, because I don't think there's really ever a thing as too much cheese. Mix this all in until it's all melted together. I used a combo of cheddar, Monterey Jack, and Gorgonzola. I'm gonna add some salt and pepper to taste here as soon as it's all melted. I've turned the cheese sauce off now. I want it to cool down pretty much before adding in the noodles. We're gonna add in some chicken that I shredded up. So for one recipe, it would be 2 cups of chicken. So I've got 4 cups here. This is difficult with a knife. Let's just hand. Next up, I have some hot sauce. This is hot sauce I made and canned from my cayenne peppers I grew last year. I haven't tried this yet. We're gonna see how spicy it is. The recipe calls for 1/3 cup or to taste per batch. Kiddos are playing. I will taste this and see exactly how much I will add. Okay, this is delicious. I was not expecting it to be sweet, but it's a very sweet, very pleasant flavor. However, I just put a tiny little bit on my finger and there's definitely some spice there. With 2 little kids, I know they're not gonna want very much spice, if any at all. So I'm just gonna put a few tablespoons in and we're gonna taste it and just see if it gives it some extra depth and flavor. All right. We're just gonna try 2. That just doesn't sound like a whole lot, but I want my kids to actually eat this. But my husband and I like, you know, a little bit of spice and flavor, but we'll see if we can compromise. This cheese sauce, though, looks so good. I detect no spice at all. So we're gonna throw in another 4. I don't even think that's a 1/3 cup yet. This is cooled down, so we're gonna throw in the cooked noodles. I had to transfer them into this pan because I needed my colander. And then this one is done. I'm just gonna put it into some pans, seal it up really well after it has cooled. We don't want to lock in any moisture. So we'll just mix this up and get it into some pans. I'm just using the disposable aluminum pans. I don't love using aluminum. I know you could line them maybe with like parchment paper, but I'd be worried it'd get really soggy and just end up getting into your food, which I don't want. And you know, we're not eating out of these all of the time, so I'm okay with it. And there are some pluses to it. Number one, if I forget to take one of these meals out the night before, I can just pop these containers right into the oven and not worry about temperature shock and glass breaking. And on top of that, I don't have 16 glass pans to use, and they're also super heavy to have those all stacked in the freezer. So this is just what I use. So this is super easy. 2 freezer meals ready to go. I'm gonna set these to the side, allow them to cool really well, and then we're going to double wrap them in saran wrap and then aluminum foil. I am looking forward to getting tomatoes in the garden. I thought some freshly made stewed tomatoes over top of this would be really good, or even if I have some, you know, lettuce and some other cherry tomatoes, other salad toppings, do a little side salad with this. So 1 down, 7 more to go. Let's keep working. Okay, next recipe, we're moving on to some stuffed shells. For one recipe, you need 3 cups of spinach chopped, and we're gonna wilt that in a little bit of butter over low heat, and then we'll start mixing up a few other things. I'm gonna keep an eye on the spinach, and we're gonna get the rest of our filling, what we're stuffing the shells with, mixed together. So you'll need 2 cups of shredded or chopped chicken. Again, I'm doubling this. Got that. And then we gotta grab some ricotta cheese, so I need a spoon. One batch calls for a 1/2 cup, so I'm gonna throw in a cup. You should know by now, I just eyeball everything. I forgot we're gonna use some garlic, so I'm gonna go and throw it in with the spinach so it gets nice and fragrant. I'll do 8 ounces of mozzarella. I like to find whole milk mozzarella if possible. I'm gonna throw in a cup of Parmesan. Usually I grate all of my own cheese, but I'm cleaning out my freezer in order to make room for these freezer meals. So we have some pre-grated cheese today, so I'm gonna throw a cup of that in there. And then we need some eggs. 1 egg per batch. 1, 2, salt and pepper. I'm just waiting for the spinach to cool down a little bit now. I don't want it to cook the eggs. We're gonna get some sauce in here. 2 cups each. Now I am using glass dishes for this recipe. Anything with tomatoes, something acidic like that, it can react with the aluminum. We don't want that. Actually, one of you told me about that. So anytime I am using a tomato-based recipe, I don't use aluminum for that reason. So we're gonna do about half the sauce in each container here. Move that zhuzh around. I'm gonna go grab the spinach and the shells. Recipes like this is how I get my kids to eat vegetables. They are not veggie lovers, and they probably get that from their father and I. We're not like huge veggie eaters here. We like our root veggies. The greens, like we like spinach and kale, Matt and I do, but my kids really do not unless I can kind of disguise it in something else. So we're doing what we gotta do. My kids are both in picky eating stages right now. When they were both like between 1 year and 2 years old, they would just eat anything. They were the best eaters. And as soon as 3 hits, they turn their nose up at everything. So we're trying to get some more good stuff into them. All right, now we stuff about maybe a tablespoon in each one of these shells. I like if they, for the most part, close back up because then not all the filling like seeps out of them as much. So I'm just gonna keep going with this process and then this one's done. I'm gonna pour just a little bit of sauce over the tops of these. Then we're gonna add some more mozzarella cheese. And these guys are done. Everything is cool enough now. I need to get them wrapped because it is fly season and it's 10 times worse if you have chickens, which we do. So I'm gonna show you how I do this, prepare them for the freezer. I'm gonna put down 2 layers of saran wrap, nice and tight. And then we'll do a layer of aluminum foil. You just have to remember, once you go to bake these, you have to take the aluminum foil off and remove the saran wrap, so we don't want that all melted in our hard work. And then once I put the aluminum foil on, I just write some quick instructions, anything that needs to be done after the fact, when they come out of the freezer, and then what temperature to bake them at. Now I'll just explain it now. You can bake these from frozen, not the glass ones, just the aluminum pans. You can bake them from frozen, but I would account for at least double, if not triple, the bake time. I usually, if I can remember, I'll pull them out the night before and allow them to thaw overnight in the fridge. Oh, hello. It's chicken.
It's for any baby house?
No, it's from our chickens.
I got them.
You like it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I got our chicken.
You like our chicken?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was I saying? But if I remember, I'll put it in the fridge, allow it to thaw overnight, and then just pop it into the oven for a normal bake time. On to the third recipe. We're gonna do some white chicken enchiladas. So I have about 6 cups of cooked and shredded chicken in here. If you're just doing one batch of these, which would get you, I believe, 8 enchiladas, you would need 3 cups. And then the amount of cheese is the same, but it's going to be divided. So we're going to put, you would need 1 cup in the bowl. I'm going to do this entire package. Now I'm just using some Colby Jack. Usually I'd like Monterey Jack, but that's not what I had in my freezer. I'm gonna sprinkle in some cumin, maybe a teaspoon, teaspoon and a half. We're gonna mix this up, and I'm gonna grab some refried beans from the pantry, and we're gonna assemble our tortillas, and then we'll get to work on our white enchilada sauce. We're gonna make the white enchilada sauce. So again, another roux. So we're gonna do, you would need 3 tablespoons of butter. We're gonna melt. All right, butter is melted. So we're gonna do equal amounts flour. So if you did 3 tablespoons butter, you're gonna do 3 tablespoons flour, but I am doubling. We're gonna slowly add in some chicken broth. 2 cups per batch. This is thickened up nicely. We're gonna add some cumin in here, some salt, some sour cream. I'm gonna add some diced green chilies. I'm gonna pour some of our sauce on the bottom of each pan. Just enough to coat the bottom. Let's see, maybe they'll fit. Perfect. Divide the rest of this over the top of these. Monterey Jack on top. These guys are all done. It's gonna allow them to cool, and then we'll package them up. Alright, I had to get everything cleaned up a bit. Don't be like how I usually am and just create a massive mess and then have to clean it up after you're all done and you're tired. I'm trying to be better about that and clean up as I go. So we're gonna move on to some ground beef and venison recipes. I have some venison I need to use up. So we're gonna make some meatballs, just some Italian meatballs. I am gonna cook these. So that way I can just pull them out and reheat, and we can use them for a quick pasta dish or on a hoagie. So we're gonna do half venison and half ground beef for this one. So I've got a cast iron skillet heating up with some olive oil in it, gonna fry them up in there. So I have 2 pounds of meat here. I'm gonna add about 1 1/3 cup of milk, cup of Italian breadcrumbs. We're gonna do a teaspoon of onion powder. That's a bit more in there. And then however much garlic you like, I'm gonna do about a teaspoon of minced garlic. We're gonna do a teaspoon of salt. And we'll do about a 1/2 cup of grated parm. Okay. I just need some eggs, 2 eggs. That's it. We're just going to get this well combined. Careful not to overmix the meat. We don't want it to get tough, just so everything is well combined. I'm gonna keep an eye on these meatballs here, but we're going to work on a second beef dish. I'm gonna make some beef and bean burritos to keep in the freezer. So I have 2 pounds of ground beef back here. I'm going to brown up and then we'll season it. I'm just gonna get all these meatballs flipped and get that other stuff browned. Meatballs are all done. They're absolutely delicious. I actually set aside a few already. We're gonna have them for dinner tonight. So I'm just gonna allow these to cool and wrap them up and get them ready for the freezer. Back to the burritos. My meat is browned and drained of grease. I am all out of taco seasoning, so we're gonna make some together. I've made it with you before. I can link the video. I think I have a few different homemade seasoning blends in that video. So we need a tablespoon of chili powder. And then we need 1 1/2 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of salt, teaspoon of paprika, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, and a 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder. And we're gonna do like a 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano. And if you want some extra spice, you can add in some red pepper flakes as well. So you would need to add 2 teaspoons of this prepared seasoning blend to your meat. I'm gonna do 4 since I'm doubling. Save the rest for another day. Mix this up and I'm gonna grab some pinto beans and some refried beans. We're gonna mix those together and I'm gonna grab some cheese and we're just gonna assemble these burritos. I decided in addition to the taco seasoning, we're gonna add some of this hot sauce in here since it is open and I don't think my kids will eat these anyway, so we'll use up some of that. Mixed up some pinto beans and some refried beans. We're gonna slather them on here. Sprinkle on some cheese. And we'll put some of our beef mixture on here. And then we just fold and wrap. And these I will package individually in some saran wrap. And then I'll put them into a freezer bag and then I can easily pull out 1 or 2 at a time. You can pop them into the oven or the microwave, whatever your preference is. Just till heated through and the cheese is melted. Whoops. We're on to our last recipe using beef and venison. We're gonna make a cottage pie, 2 cottage pies. So right now I have sauteed some carrots, celery, shallots, and garlic, just for a few minutes until they get just a tiny bit soft. And we are going to actually brown our meat right in here with this. I'm gonna do some venison and some beef, a pound of each. Our meat is all browned. Now we're gonna add in a whole bunch of other stuff. Half cup of flour. I'm gonna mix that, and then I needed some, what is the word? Tomato paste. Don't know where my brain was at that moment. And I forgot that I intentionally let myself run out of tomato paste because I have a whole bunch of freeze-dried tomato powder here. So I just put in a little bit of water. Made my own tomato paste. So let me get this flour mixed in here, and then we're gonna add in tomato paste, some broth, some Worcestershire, a few seasonings, some red wine. If you don't want to use the wine, you can just use some more beef broth. Okay, tomato paste. Add in some beef broth here slowly. One cup of red wine. About 4 tablespoons of Worcestershire. Teaspoon of dried rosemary. About 1.5 teaspoons of salt and a pinch of pepper. We're just gonna allow this to simmer for a little while, and while it does that, we're gonna get to work on our topping. For our topping, we're gonna do mashed potatoes, and I am using 2 quart jars of my canned potatoes. Do a few tablespoons of butter, a splash of milk, and a whole bunch of Parmesan. Now, I've never had canned potatoes turn out aesthetically appealing when I turn them into mashed potatoes. They're just not gonna get fluffy, but I promise you they still taste good, especially when you know, zhuzh them up with a whole bunch of yumminess, like Parmesan cheese and butter. After about 30 minutes, it thickens into like a gravy consistency. That's about half. And as it cools, it will thicken up even more. I just started the dishwasher, so sorry you'll hear that in the background. I'm going to try and not have this be a total disaster here on top. And I'm just gonna top this. I'm gonna probably rough it up with a fork a little bit and then top it with some Parmesan cheese. And then these need to cool completely and they'll go into the freezer too.
We don't want this. Or did the other way different? The other way gone. The other way gone. But Maya was having to eat.
It cleans up again, because oh my, let's just say I'm a messy cook. So we're gonna work on the last two meals, and these are both gonna be featuring pork. This one is just a conglomeration of things that I throw together. So I'm boiling some water. We're going to cook some quinoa. And in a frying pan, we're going to saute some spinach. I'm gonna cook up some pork, just plain pork that we have from our pig. And we're also gonna throw some chickpeas in there. We're gonna cook all those things, add some different seasoning, and garlic scape pesto. Really yummy, easy thing to throw together. So I'm gonna get this chopped up and everything in the frying pan. We got some olive oil in a pan here. I'm gonna throw in a pound of ground pork. We're gonna add the spinach and the chickpeas that can all cook together. Spinach. Chickpeas. Let's add some garlic. Some onion powder. A little sprinkle of rosemary. A little bit of oregano. I don't need too much in the way of seasoning because we're adding in the garlic scape pesto. This is not the right lid. I do want to add a good bit of salt. And get some quinoa cooking. Garlic scape pesto from the garden going in. Obviously you can use any pesto. You could also switch this up and do like sun-dried tomatoes, maybe even add some cherry tomatoes in here. I think I would probably do the cherry tomatoes like after it's been cooked though. I mean, totally up to you. That would just be my preference. Quinoa is all done, so we're just gonna split it. I think these pans are gonna be big enough. Maybe I made too much quinoa. I'm gonna put our pork mixture over the top. And we're just gonna sprinkle this with some cheese, some mozzarella and some Parmesan. And then when I would go to serve this, I'd serve it with some lemon wedges to squeeze over the top. Okay, last recipe. This is probably one of my favorite recipes to make. I love this dish. It's a bit more time-consuming, hands-on work, but I think it's so worth it. We're gonna make some pork dumplings. So all we need are some green onions. We're going to divide the white from the green tops. We're gonna use both of them. So I'm gonna get these sliced up. And then some of ginger. We're going to peel this and grate it. And we're gonna need some minced garlic. We're gonna need some coconut aminos, or you could use soy sauce. I just prefer using coconut aminos. It's a bit cleaner. Salt and pepper. And we need a pound of plain ground pork, besides some wonton wrappers. wasn't totally thinking when I said to separate the white from the green. It doesn't really matter now because this is just going to be a freezer meal, but I like to save the green tops to put in a dipping sauce with some coconut aminos and some honey. So I might just freeze dry what is left here or dehydrate them to use at a later time. So I got my wonton wrappers here. I am going to just take some water around the edges, and then you only need a really small amount, like a teaspoon. Not much more fits in here well. And we're just gonna take this side, fold all the edges over. You can just leave it as is. You could fold bottoms in, however you want. So I'm just gonna go ahead and make a whole bunch of these, and then we'll get to frying them up. From here, we fry on each side for about a minute or until golden brown. I worked in batches and got them all fried up on each side. I'm gonna put some back in here. I'm gonna have to work in batches again. We're gonna add a splash of water, cover it, make sure the temp is around medium-low, and we're gonna allow them to steam for like 3 to 4 minutes. Pork wontons or dumplings all finished. So I'll bring these out and I'll either refry them or I will bake them. That helps them maintain a little bit of their crispiness. If you microwave them, they really do just get pretty soft, which is fine. They still taste really good, but if you like that crunchier texture, I'd either bake them or fry them again. And then I'll serve it, like I said, with some of that dipping sauce and some sort of rice, a jasmine rice or like the jasmine and coconut rice, or jasmine and coconut milk rice that I like to make.
Eight recipes, 16 meals, 1 day of cooking for a month of easy dinners. We got the freezer stocked, and I am so grateful to have these meals as an option after a busy day in the garden or in the kitchen preserving the garden harvest. I hope you got some freezer meal or just some dinner time inspiration from this video. Don't forget to like this video and leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for hanging out, friend. You have a blessed week, and I will see you next time.